Well, hello there. How are we all doing today? So today, it's funny, is going to be a little bit, I've been kind of playing with all sorts of different conversations, and I'm incredibly excited. And so what I wanted to do is to kind of tell two parts of a primary story. So it's really interesting that people are here. There's a couple more folks that are coming, but I've actually known this family for a really long time. I think it was a training appointment for Trisha, right? 1,000 years ago. Trisha was the godmother of Brett. His middle name was Patrick because of Trisha, right? That was a training appointment 1,000 years ago, and then Sue started working with the family and has done all sorts of amazing things for him, and then they've grown up. And so there's an understanding of the Primerica services kind of within the family, which is kind of a cool thing. And now, just got married and starting the business a little bit. And Randy's like, I don't really know much about it except that, every couple of while Sue's here and helps my family, right? So, and so tonight's gonna be a fun story, hopefully, for you guys. We'll have some fun. It's going to go into a little bit different depth than a traditional meeting, but there's a reason for kind of where we are. And for the folks that have been here before, and this will be kind of fun, is there's two kinds of ways to listen to tonight's conversation. Okay? For you guys, the one is to hear the story. For the rest of you, it's to hear the story and to realize for all of us that this is also your story. And so this will be kind of an interesting, fun little thing. I'm really excited right now, and I'm excited you guys are here. So 4 years ago, sat in a room, and it's interesting. What's
It's a show.
4 years ago, we sat here and said, okay, we don't like when we've got to reinvent and do all sorts of stuff. And over the last, I was talking to Luby a little bit earlier, over the last couple of years, my primary business has been about building this language in the system, okay? We needed to figure out a way to tell our story, right? What does Primerica do? What do we do, right? Because as a little kid, I didn't dream about selling insurance and investments. I don't know a lot of people who did. Like, that wasn't the thing we drew on the picture and say, when I grow up, I want to, like, sell someone an investment policy. Like, that's not like the thing that we dreamt about, right? And so it was, what do we do? How do we make an impact? And I thought a lot about kind of, and this is serious because I took notes, right? So, like, right? But we talk about this, and this is kind of an interesting question. Why are you here? Right? For the folks that are doing Primerica, that are participating in the business, right? Someone who's looking at the business or doing anything, why are you here? Right? And I talked to a lot of folks, and some people will say, well, I want to help people. Right? How many of us feel like we're here because we want to help people? Right? And we want to make an impact. We want to make an impact, right? Here's the reality of the situation. In my humble opinion, that's actually not that humble. Neither of these are the reason why you're here. None of us are here to help people. Then none of us are here to make an impact. You know why? Because we could help people volunteer at our church or volunteer at a hospital. There's a lot of places that we can go to help people. Is that true? There's a lot of places we can go and make an impact that's a heck of a lot more fun than insurance and investments and loans. None of us dreamt about insurance, investments, and loans yet. Now, here's a very important thing. Is it important that if we're going to be here, that we help people? Yes. Is it important that if we're going to be here, we make an impact? Yes. Those are two very different conversations. My wife's over there going, where are you going with this? I'm not exactly sure. This will be a fun adventure. Because I'm sitting here and I think it's really critical. I love helping people, but I can help people doing a whole bunch of things. See, one of the things that we're here to do, right, is this is a business. This is a profession. At the end of the day, how many of you think it's important that you and your family get financially free, to whatever definition that means? If it's an extra $500 a month, then it's an extra $500 a month. If it's a $500 a day, it's $500 a day. But at the end of the day, The reason that we go into business, right? You're talking about go to school, maybe I want to start my business. Why do we do that? Is because there's an opportunity that says, look, I can control my financial destiny if I'm in charge of my financial life. Is that fair? Right? So what happens is we go there and go, wait a second, what we need to do in our life is build assets. Build to a place where we can build security and understanding. Now, when I realized going, okay, wait, so I've been really thinking about this, and this is all kind of fun, so I'm a little clumsy in this conversation, but I'm incredibly excited about this. Because what I realized is we've been trying to talk to people about they're here to help people make an impact. And the reality is I'm here to make sure that me and my family get completely and totally financially free. Now, because I'm going to be here, Don, it's really, really important that I help people. It's really, really important that I make an impact on people's lives. Does that make sense? But you and I are in business together because you want to create assets in your life. You want to change freedom. You want to get to a point where you can do what you want with whom you want in any fashion and style that you want. Is that fair? Now the question is that if we had a legitimate opportunity where you could build assets in your life to deliver on those promises and you could help people make an impact, does that put us in alignment with our goals? Right? My job is, your job is, we're not to be babysitters. We're not to go do this stuff. You want to go build a life. I want to go build a life. Let's max out the best vehicle we possibly have in order to do it. Where we can help people and make a difference at the same time. Does this make sense? And as soon as this clicked, I went, oh, this is so fun. Because I think what we try to do is to make this our priority, but this actually isn't our priority. Robin loves helping people. Loves helping people. Here's the reality. If I put 50 things out there that says you can help people with any of these 50 things, and all of them will, there's a really good chance insurance and investments isn't the top 3 that's picked. Does that make sense? Most of us wouldn't pick insurance and investments as the top 3 if this was our #1 objective and you could get financially independent with any of the options. Now, does this make sense? As soon as it does, I went, oh, that takes so much pressure off. Because now all I've got to do is go, look, right here, if we could build an asset, build a machine that provided the assets for us to get free and make an impact and help people, that allows us to accomplish goals. So that's what the conversation about tonight we're going to talk about. So, is that fair? Is this all right? You having fun? All right. What's that? So far, so good. All right. Check. Okay. All right. Sometimes these are tight ropes, right? And all of a sudden it's like, where is he going, right? So the interesting thing about this is we asked this question kind of what we did is we looked at this and said, look, right? We call it our access gap. But the wealthy people have access to education and financial freedom and ownership and financial advice, and the not-so-wealthy have access to financial support and free preschool and college grants. And these 70 million people in the middle, all of us, say, hey, I want to put my kids to college, but I make too much money, so we have to pay for it on our own. We want to go to preschool, but we can't take advantage of those systems. We want financial advice, but we don't make enough for the wealthy people to talk to us about it. So we have to take on the world alone. Now, to us, this is a legitimate problem. Does that make sense? Now, if we could solve this problem, would we be helping a lot of people? If we could solve this problem, would we be making a tremendous impact? Okay, so we've satisfied, if we could, we've satisfied these 2 things. Cool, but that's not the end of the story, is it? Because the reason we're here is that we've got to make sure that we can find a way to build assets in our life in order to solve for this. So we want to go through this and go, yes, this is critical because 70 million people have been abandoned by the industry, and we make too much money to take advantage of those systems and not enough money here. We are stuck. And the system is actually designed to keep us there. Now, if there was a business that could show 70 million people how to have access to the tools of the wealthy, should that business be successful? Okay, so now solving this problem makes an impact. Solving this problem helps, and if we can develop a business model that allowed us to do that, we could be successful. Great. So now we have the theoretical. Awesome. Primerica sat back and said, okay, This is what we want to do. And there's, right now, 4,000 RVPs around the country, and they all run their businesses a little bit differently. Some run their business, some are really big at products. And they sit down and they're like, okay, what we want to do is we want to help people with their insurance and their investment needs, and we want to do that. Others grow businesses, and they recruit a bunch of people, and they're like, hey, look, we're going to find the people that want to grow. Right? Every one of us get to run our businesses a little bit differently. Well, we sat back and said, look, if we understand why we're here, and we understand that this is an integral part of being here, because if we're going to spend 3 years or 5 years or 10 years of our lives saying, yes, I want to build a business, yes, I want to build assets in my life, we also want to enjoy ourselves. Right? I want to have fun. I want to enjoy the people I'm around. I want to be able to handpick the people who work. I want to be able to dream. I want to be able to understand that there's a responsibility, and we want to have incredibly high standards on the people around us. How many of us want that too? So all of that stuff factors in. So we sit there and go, okay, how do we do this? Y'all having fun? So it's funny because I'm excited. So we sat there and said, okay, we know what we're going to do, which is we said, look, we're going to build an access company. This ultimately is what we do. We provide access to the financial education and the tools of the wealthy. We said, look, if we could take the financial education and the tools of the wealthy, we could show a family how to get financially secure in 1 generation and financially free in 2 to 3 generations. What does this mean? Okay. Adriana, your husband's name is? John. Adriana. Okay. So you guys are, how old are you? You're 34 years old. Are you guys planning on starting a family? Okay. So, now here's the thing. So here's a young couple, right? Starting out, just got married a month ago, right? Going to start a family. Now, if you listen to Sue for the next 30 or 40 years, you live below your means, you save your money, you put money away for retirement, you do all that stuff, do you believe if you take advantage of the education and the tools that we have, that your family, you and John can legitimately get financially secure by the time you retire? That is your goal, right? I got a question though. What do you think the likelihood, just by saving and investing, what do you think the likelihood of you having $50 million be? 50 million is probably like that's a whole that's a different lifestyle than 3.5 million. Is that fair? Now 3.5 million is pretty cool, but how many think 50 million would be awesome? But I got a question. Will the financial education and the tools, will saving in mutual funds and getting managed accounts over the next 30 or 40 years, saving a couple $100, will that get you $50 million in retirement?
I don't think so.
Probably not. Probably not. But I got a question for you. Let's say that you have a son, and we're just going to call him Billy for some strange reason, because we always call him Billy. And now let's say you teach Billy, right? So your entire life, right? You're saving and investing. You're on pace for your $3.5 million. And as Billy grows and gets older and saves and he gets his first job, all of a sudden you're going to save half of your money. And all of a sudden you take advantage of the systems. Now all of a sudden, and so now you've got this $3.5 million, and Billy saves and invests, saves and invests, saves and invests. By the time Billy's 60, do you think Billy could save 2 to 3 times as much money as you do if he's trained over if you're starting at 34 and he starts at 14? Is Billy in a dramatically different place in retirement than you guys?
Oh, yeah.
Now let's say Billy has a kid named Sam. If Billy has $12 million, by the time Sam's 50, what's the likelihood that Sam is literally financially free and creating wealth in his family if over the next 2 to 3 generations this stuff is taught earlier and supported all the way through? That makes sense? So, we can show a family how to get financially secure by saving and investing. And we can show a family over 2 to 3 generations how to get financially free and change the system forever. Most of us live our parents' financial life. And they live their parents' financial life. And they live their parents' financial life. Well, do we really want our parents' financial life? I love my parents, but I don't actually want their financial life. They do the best they can with the information they got. The problem is, most of them didn't have good information early enough to develop the habits, to instill the habits, to be able to make a change. But you guys have both grown up around Primerica. You know how much easier it's going to be to teach Billy to save and invest, to establish the right habits now, because your folks already instilled some, you're already working with, so you're already years ahead of before I met your parents. You're 10 years or 12 years younger than when I met your folks the first time. So that time, we don't have to reinvent. And I remember sitting down with them. It wasn't fun the first couple times because they were like, we totally know what we're doing, because they didn't think they were doing anything wrong. They just weren't exposed the first time. I remember, I could go to the house right now. I remember. Okay, so how funny. I haven't thought about that conversation in a long time. You can say hi to your dad for me, because I remember that conversation. Right? So it was very pleasant and very nice, but very, no, we got this. Sound familiar?
Oh, yeah.
Now you're like, I don't got this. Just the I need help changes the infrastructure. Opens the door for Billy, which locks the door open for Sam. Fantastic. If we just do that, do we help people?
Yes.
Did we make an impact?
Yes.
Cool. Here's the problem with this story. This is 84 years from now. Now, we love our kids and our grandkids. The ideas are awesome. Basically, what this story means is we're going to kind of struggle and save and invest and do the best we can to be okay so that our grandkids can be like rock stars. Which sounds noble, but how many think it'd be more fun for us to be some rock star status in our lifetime, like in the next 5 years? Yeah. Right? I don't hate on my grandkids. I want them to have a lot of fun, but shit, I want to have. But because my parents didn't do this. Right? We've all seen it. We've all been driving down the freeway in the middle of the afternoon, see like a 12-year-old kid with a side hat, driving a Porsche, and you're like, Daddy bought it for him, right? None of us go, hey, pull over. You must have found a unique opportunity, right? But at the same time, how many of us wish Daddy would have bought it for him, right? It's like, oh, I respect it. No bullshit, right? So, right, what's the sentence, right? I know a lot of broke, spoiled kids too, right? So just having money isn't the issue, right? We all want to spoil our children, just teach them to not act spoiled, right? So I love the idea of spoiling the hell out of our kids, just teach them respect. Okay, does this make sense? So the question becomes, if we want to do this, again, why are we here? Yes, helping people, yes, making an impact, but why are we here? Because we want a legitimate opportunity to build assets in our life for us to have a shot to get free. The only way to get free in this country is through ownership. That's it. The ability to have passive income earned on some work we did, revenue now to be able to control the efforts now, and profit, the ability to have a system that runs for us whether we do it or not. At our jobs, we all experience revenue. We trade time for money. But our passive income, the stuff we did 5 years ago, don't pay us. And the stuff we've trained and developed other people to do don't pay us. So we said, okay, if we want ownership, we said, what if there's a way to create ownership through that system? Right? So this is what we're doing and why. So the questions were like, okay, going through this story one step at a time. Why are we here? To build assets and to get free. What's important? We help people make an impact. Okay, so there's 70 million people that are stuck. Helping folks get financially secure makes an impact, right? 2 or 3 generations makes a difference. Fantastic. But why would we spend the next 3 to 5 years doing something with our life? It has to make sure that the time we put in makes a difference in us. The ability to create ownership. So we sat back and said, okay, what does this all work? How does this come together, and what are we doing? See, our business is built on what we call allies, advocates, and associates. I said, look, our #1 job is for everyone in our life to understand and support what we do. What does someone need? How do we do this? Well, if we're going to help a family, right, we need to make sure that we lock in their advances. That if something, God forbid, happens, our kids never start over. Right? The wealthy have trust set. They say, you know what, we worked our tail off to get to this place, we don't want to have to start over. Said, look, we understand that habits are key. We didn't get into this problem overnight, we're not going to get out of it overnight. We've got to have access to a way to build habits. And then we've got to lock in our advances and be able to secure them. Well, we help people with level term insurance. Why? Because it's what Main Street families can do to make sure that if something happens to this, those kids don't start over. We can start saving and investing $25, $50, $100, $200, $500 a month to create the habits, and then we can leverage managed accounts to make sure that we let professionals truly run it. So we said, these are the legitimate pieces of what we can do. We said, well, this is a great idea, and this helps. But if we want to be able to grow a business, we need to be able to go, okay, so now all of a sudden we're sitting there going, okay, so I'm trying to build this story the right way. So we're like, okay, I do brief recaps. Is this helping at all? Is this good? Okay, so we're like, okay, we know what we're doing. We know that we've got to own. How do you own? Well, we've got a couple choices. You could franchise something. Anyone got $500,000 you just laying around and done the better to do? No. Who has access to that? Who else? It takes 5 years to make a single dollar profit. Who has enough time and money to be able to last 5 years before they make a single dollar profit? Us. Now we've got the mom and pop, where I'm going to go start my own deal. The problem is, traditionally, we become self-employed. And we literally hire the worst boss in the history of the world. Ourselves. I got a question. If someone else said to you what you say to you, wouldn't you smack them in the face? We know when we're lazy. We know when we screw up. We know when we cut corners. We know when we're short. We know when we're rude. We know that we don't do what we need to do. We know what we're supposed to do when we don't do it. And we're hiring us. Isn't that awesome? Wouldn't you love to work for you all the time? Isn't that fun? The problem also is that how do you and I figure, right? What do they talk about? Money and kids. The two things you have to screw up in order to learn. The third one is business. Why does it take most small businesses 5 years to make a single dollar profit? Because people don't work hard? No, because you have no idea what you're doing. The reason franchises work is they built a system where someone can say, do this. And you can say, well, I don't want to do that. They're like, well, you just paid me $500,000. You need to do this. And they're like, oh, okay. I paid this money because you can teach me all the things that I'm going to have to pay to learn on my own. The problem is this group of people doesn't have $500,000, so they have to figure all those things out on their own. The problem is they then run out of money before they figure out all the things, and they go back and work again. Sounds fun, and they get to stay in that group over and over. So those are traditionally our two wonderful systems. Well, Primerica says, wait a second here. We know who we want to help. We know the need that we've got to help. Let's take a look at these two systems and go, what are the benefits of both of them? The great thing about the mom and pop, the great thing about the Main Street entrepreneur is they're excited, they're hungry, they're passionate, they're focused, disciplined, because there's something in their life where they're like, I have a shot. And that's at the end of the day what most of us want, is this opportunity to do something. What's the great thing about the franchise is there's a system for someone to follow where they know step 1, step 2, step 3. So we sat back and said, well, wait a second. What if we took an environment where the best of both of these were? What if we could have the system of a $2 billion company, but the heart and passion of the Main Street entrepreneur? If we put those two things together, that's a pretty talented group of people with a pretty significant opportunity. The problem is, how do we get a $2 billion company without $500,000 of capital to be able to get through the door? Well, how do most businesses work in the beginning? Well, one, they get a name. So they got to buy a name. Then they got to get a building. And then staff and inventory and resources and lights. And there's all of this stuff that has to be created for the business to open its doors. For anyone, all of this has to be paid before someone can walk through the door at the very beginning. Does that make sense? Well, all of that takes money. Well, what we said is, well, what if we could have the stature of this? The mom and pop says, man, I don't have to do anything. Man, I can design it from my computer. I can build my little things. I can open the door and say, I'm open for business. And so everyone goes, yeah, but we don't know who you are. You have no credibility, no understanding. How do I know you're any good? How do I know you're going to be here next week? How should I pay you? And now there's conflict to build huge reputation, all of this up front, no reputation, and nothing up front. So he said, well, if we really wanted to solve this problem, and we needed ownership, then we need to create a path to that ownership. Because otherwise we're out of alignment. Because otherwise we can sit here and say, well, we want to get financial freedom over the next 2 to 3 generations, which is great, but that doesn't solve my problem. And my problem is, yes, I want to help people. Yes, I want to make an impact in other people's lives, but I also want to be okay about wanting to take care of my own family. I want to be able to do what I want with whom I want, any fashion style I want it, and I want it to be okay to be able to say that. Understanding that if I'm going to say that, it's incredibly important that I'm making a difference and helping people. So we said we need a path. All right, well, what if we put these two things together? So we said what we're going to do is build something very, very different. We're going to take a look at the world and say what we're going to do is we're going to start building assets from day one. And our assets are our support system. We looked at this and said, one, is there a problem in this country with the finances? If we provided access the way we do, could that be a legitimate solution? So if we took the conversation of our problem and we took the conversation of our solution to the most important people in our lives, what's the likelihood of them saying, yes, I agree that that is a problem, and yes, I agree that that is a pretty good solution? If we didn't ask them to do anything other than that, could we get people in our corner simply by going, yes, there's a problem, and yes, that's a viable solution? Now what we've done is we built a foundation of support. I got a question. How many of you would like to save 15% or more on your car insurance? How many of us know exactly the commercials? We giggle and laugh when the caveman came out, all that stuff. How many of us ever call? We'd all love to save, and 1 or 2 out of any room, none of us call except when it's time to do the review, and we're like, oh, fine, through that process. Why? Because they pay that money to build that name and reputation. We said, no, what we're going to do is build a support system. Why? Because once we do that, we can then build advocates. I have a question. Now that you've heard the story about what we're doing, if your cousin needed to save and invest, do you think it's important that you're like, hey, you need to meet Sue because I remember the habits that my folks have taught me, and having me exposed to this stuff makes it a lot easier now, and I love my niece and nephew, you really got to get this information. Like, that's a pretty simple conversation, isn't it? Not you need to buy something, now you need to join, now you need to do this. But hey, this is a pretty valuable conversation that I think everyone should know the conversation of the problem and the conversation of the solution. Cool. So we said we're going to build advocates. Then we said, look, this is another support system. But we need to get this story out. The easiest way to get the story out is more people being able to tell it. The other part of this story is for us to be in alignment with our message. It's not just about, if I sat here and said, oh, Hubie, I'm going to run this business because I want to take care of my family, and the way I'm going to take care of my family is making sure that your family is fine 50 years from now. But I'm going to take care of my family in the next 5 years, and I'm going to show you how to take care of your family in the next 50. And 50 is better than none. But if you don't have the same opportunity that I have to take care of it in the next 5, aren't I kind of manipulating the system to get you okay with 50 so that I can be okay with 5? Is that how most of us want to spend our lives? Like if I came to you and said, hey, Randy, this is the greatest opportunity in the world. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to make sure you get rich, and we're going to help everybody, but none of them have a shot to get rich, but it's okay that you're rich.
Well,
it's a weird thing to say out loud.
It's a lot to consider.
It is.
It's a lot to consider.
So I sat there and said, look, I can't convince anyone to do anything. But Don, you know how fun it is to go, look, if I could show you in the next 5 years how to take care of your family by helping us change this problem, it allows us to be in alignment. It allows us to say there's a whole bunch of people that are hurt, and we want to create a space for everybody to be able to participate to whatever level that they want to participate. This isn't about everyone joining Premier. This isn't about everybody going full-time and opening offices and doing all that stuff. It's about, look, creating a space for allies. Your folks are some of the best advocates Sue's ever had. Anytime she needs something, there's a support system, there's a conversation, there's an introduction, there's this, there's that. Imagine having 50, 100, 200 advocates in your life. The people who knew your character, knew what you're trying to get accomplished, and constantly looking for people that could take advantage of the systems and the support that you're providing. If you have that, we can have a pretty successful business. And we can also solve a pretty significant problem. So we went, man, that's what we want to be able to create. That's really what this opportunity is about. Is we sat back and said, look, for someone who wanted to take advantage of it, we created something called our GAP, our Gathering Asset Partners. Why? Because we looked at this and said, there are 10,000 people turning 65 years old every day for the next 19 years. This is the first generation that's ever had access to a 401k. First 401k was established in 1978. These people's parents get pensions. $800 a month, $1,200 a month, $2,000 a month. So when they retired, they went from having an income of $3,000 a month at their salary to $1,500 of their pension and $1,500 in Social Security. So they didn't have to manage money. They had to manage their income, which they'd spent their entire lives managing their income before. Does this make sense? Now, our parents, this group of people, the kids of the pension people, are now having access to checks for $214,000, $619,000, $87,500, $900,000, large to whatever number, because any of this is more money most of these people have ever seen at one time in their account that they have complete control. The problem is, who's been talking to these people about financial planning for 40 years? No one, because they were all making between $30,000 and $80,000, and the wealthy people in this country, the wealthy advisors are like, man, they don't make any money. So they don't have any relationships, but they have access to checks, which is a really bad combination in this industry. In case any of you ever experienced the mortgage crisis, when all of a sudden there was really smart people who learned how to talk to people, could go in and tell people that loved their family things that they wanted to hear and get them convinced that great things were going to happen, like they should refinance, they should sell, they should buy their house, they should flip this house and do all this stuff until it exploded. That was a target-rich environment. Interest-only loans have been around 100 years. The problem is, people said, oh, because of property values are going up, you can do this, why pay it up, and you can flip it, and you can do this, and now all of a sudden, well, guess what? What if those same people start talking to these people about their future? There's a pretty big problem. Well, we said, well, wait a second. What do we need to do? We understand. We need to help people, and we need to make an impact. So we have our gathering asset partners that have no interest in building business. We're like, hey, get licensed. What if your cousin
retires, and all we did was put that money over in the man's accounts and we let the experts run it, you could build passive income and give them access to the legitimate tools that are out there. You could make a difference, and someone else can service them. Why? Well, the cool thing is that $3 million in assets under management pays about $1,200 a month in passive income. What do we know about most of the people retiring today? They don't have enough money. Social Security is questionable. Pensions are gone. Remember this pension? It's gone. The average person starts working at 22 and retires at 67, and the average Social Security check is $1,269. $3 or $4 million completely takes care of it. Not someone who wants to build a business, not someone who wants to get financially independent, but what if we could change their life by helping the people in the world who want to do something different? We found a space. We have our part-timers that love their job. They don't want to do anything different. They love what they're doing. They're on a path, they're on a passion, they're excited about it. But they're like, oh my goodness, there's 70 million people that need help. We can make a help, and we can make an extra $1,000 a month. What if we could just help 2 or 3 families a month over 30 days and make an extra $800 or $1,000 a month just helping the people in our lives that no one else is going to help? That makes a pretty significant impact. There's going to be some of our part-timers that want to get full-time and say, wait a second, what if I could build a team and build an army and make $2,000, $4,000, $6,000 a month part-time while I build myself into full-time? Because I don't have to leave my job. There's a support system and an infrastructure to be able to walk us through what that's being created. And then we call our team owners, our Main Street entrepreneurs. We're like, wait a second. What if there was a way to change this story? So we said at the power of every business owner is there's passive income, there's revenue, and there's profit. Well, if we leverage all of these systems, as a regional vice president with $15 million of assets under management, the passive income is $8,300 a month. If you have another $15 million or another $30 million of assets to your gaps, you've got your part-time players learning how to do this. That's an extra $8,300. That's $200,000 a year in passive income. And if the market grows at a 9% rate of return in 8 years, that becomes $400,000. If you have a team of people that helps 30 families a month lock in their advances and secure them in mutual funds, pay about $16,000 a month in revenue. That's an additional $200,000. And the great news about what we did is we said, Don, if I give you the same opportunity that I've got, when we align our goals, for every regional vice president that you teach to go through this system, where they do half of what you do, the company bonus is about $6,200, about $72,000 a year for every one. So if over the next 5 or 7 years, you have 2, 3, 4, $350,000 of profit. $750 $1 million in business. Cash. Does this start to change our situation in one generation? So we said, we want to create a space for the support system in our life, for the advocates in our life, and for anybody that says, I fit because there's a legitimate problem, and we have access to a real solution. This is what the Primerica opportunity is to be able to sit back and say, look, it's really, really important that I help you. And it's really, really important that I make a difference. But I can go make a difference in a lot of places. But if I could take care of my family and help people make a difference, that allows us to create an and in our life. That allows me to look in the mirror and say, do I want to change? Do I want to grow? What are the options? What are the choices? How do we do this? And what possibilities are in front of us? This is the piece that we want to create. This is why we do and how we do. Because there's a space for everybody. All right? That's a little messy, but this is our primary story. So we sat back and we said, okay, Don, if I could show you to make an extra $1,000 a month, does that make a difference in your life? There's a lot of people that say yes. If I could show you how to help people that no one else is going to show up and help, would that make a difference in your life? If there was a way that you could keep doing what you're doing, but make a couple $1,000s a month part-time, would that make a difference in your life? And if you were an entrepreneur, if you had that spirit that said, I want to make a difference, and I want to take care of my family, and I don't want to reinvent the wheel, and I don't want everything to fall on my shoulders, and I don't want to be responsible for all of it, and I don't want to start from scratch, and I don't want to have to come up with everything, and I don't want it to take 5 years to make $1, and I don't want to have to make all these mistakes to be able to go through, but I still want to have the opportunity to create freedom in my life. If we could teach a system that's already been proven and allows us to go through, and we could spend the next 5 to 7 years building a business, would this start to change our life? Because with 70 million people in business, there are 3 questions. I don't care what business you own. The 3 first questions, maybe not the most important long term, but the 3 first most important questions I've ever heard anyone talk about in business is, what's your market? Who's your competition? And what's the need? If you can't get past those 3 questions, there's no reason to go any further, right? If you have a really great product and a really great comp, everything's great, but no one needs it, right? Everyone's like, oh, this guy's so good, he can sell iced Eskimos. You never heard that? You ever wondered why they would? Let's sell hot chocolate to the Eskimos. Right? He's so good, he knows how to sell them something they don't need. That's not who we are. Let's solve a problem, because if we were selling hot chocolate to Eskimos, our market is all the Eskimos. If we're selling iced Eskimos, our market is the dumb ones. We said market, 70 million people. That's a lot of Eskimos. Our competition. How many of you would like to get wealthy? Get out of debt? Have the right protection? Do we think the banks have any interest in helping you get wealthy? The insurance companies have any interest in protecting? The lenders have any interest in getting out of debt? Our competition is literally nobody. If you live, it's important that you eat. If you're raising a family, you have to figure out your budget and save. And if you die, how important is the family lock in to protect your family? So the need is vital. Now, if we had a business where the market was everyone, the competition was no one, and the need was vital, and we could actually build something that no one could take away, and there was a place for everybody, do you think we could make an impact? Tonight really was, there's a lot of different things that we're going to go through and continue, but really this conversation's about, we need to tell this, and we need to be good at understanding and settle the issue inside all of us, and yes, we want to help people, and we want to make a difference. But we have an opportunity in front of us where we can start to change our lives. And we need all those support systems we can, which means everybody in our life needs to understand this too. We've got to create a platform where they can be actively involved in helping. And there are going to be some that say, man, I want to play and be a part of this, wherever it is, in this space. This is what we want to do. This is our primary company. Why? And that's my story. So, you know, that's really the first part of kind of this conversation is we want to make sure that our new folks really have a clear understanding of what we're doing. And so that's really the foundation of over the next 6 months, over the next year, it's how do we grow this thing? What do we do? How do we put ourselves in the lane when we're getting licenses, and what are those pieces? We've got a Saturday training back here on Saturday. It's the reason why we call our Saturday practices on Saturday. But we go, look, jeans and t-shirts, and it's let's go through this process. Let's break this down from one step into the next. Why? Because we don't want to have to reinvent the system. We want to be able to have a platform for this thing to be able to grow the way we need it to. And so, obviously, all of you guys are invited back, and the more exposure that we've got to this, it's really, really, really kind of a helpful piece with that. So that's our story. So you guys all know this stuff, but it's kind of a cool thing. So if there's any questions, we'll be around and we'll go through. And obviously, so thank you guys for coming.
That's good.
That's probably a good thing. Yeah. What's wrong with that? You see it laid out that way. Yeah.
So awesome. It's good.
It's a new stage.
It's the concept of creating generational wealth. How it does
It hit me so hard, and it touched all my little heartstrings, and I was so like emotional. I was like, and then here you go, like, wow,
something I
yeah.
could definitely help people with.
This is
As you take a while,
like, I'm really